Well, hello, Sumair. Thanks for joining me today, and just wanted to thank you again for participating in the recent PlanetPTC Live in Las Vegas. And while you were there at the conference, you heard a lot of speakers, including Jim Heppelman, Brian Shepard, Brian Lindauer, as well as many customers. And I was curious, what were some of the trends and the key topics that you heard about at the conference?
Well, there was so much content presented at the event, but I took away three sort of major themes that I thought were very interesting. I think one was obviously around the whole MKS acquisition, about more and more software being in products, and I think that was very interesting. Obviously talked about from a PTC perspective, but also a lot of the customers talked about it. We had the folks from Caterpillar talk about it. We had the folks from Raytheon talk about it, and Continental, mention how they are much more like software companies now than just pure product companies. I thought that was really interesting, and how that sort of aligns is not only does that impact the way products are serviced, because the software needs to be serviced as well or updated, but what does that software enable from a service and support perspective? And that feeds into some of the research we do around sort of remote monitoring and services. I also thought it was interesting, sort of the second thing that I noticed was the sort of alignment of PTC around sort of the functional roles, if you will. I think Jim pointed out the sort of the enterprise layer, the manufacturing supply chain layer, the engineering layer, and then the service and support layer, and sort of the alignment of products across all those different functions, as opposed to having one product for one specific function. I thought that was very interesting, sort of the extension of product lifecycle management, if you will, beyond just manufacturing and engineering, but even considering that into service and support. That was the second thing that I saw. And then I think really that collaboration piece, that was something that's kind of streamed through from all the people that I spoke to. That's not just functions of the organization in isolation around manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, engineering and services. It's about sort of looking at the entire customer experience. How do you change the usability of a product? Even though there's more and more complexity in products right now, how do these products impact the eventual customer experience? And that's what we saw was sort of the underlying third theme, if you will, was the impact of all of those different functions and collaborations on the end customer experience.
So I'm familiar with some of your research at the Aberdeen Group, and how do you see those trends and topics that at the event line up with what you're seeing from your research across the global environment?
There's a lot of alignment, and at Aberdeen I'm looking at sort of the overall service and support spectrum. So we're looking at it from a top level, from what the chief service officer, if you will, is looking at from a service strategy perspective. And then we also look at functional units around field service, contact center and support, and the parts and logistics piece. So we get a view of us slightly more granular if we look at the different functions, and we look at it from a top level service strategy perspective. And I see real alignment in what we're seeing around the discussions around collaboration between the manufacturing teams, the supply chain teams, and the service teams. If you were to extend that, what we see is sort of something we call the fully connected service enterprise, or the fully connected enterprise, is where each of these teams work together to understand not only the product life cycle, but the eventual customer life cycle. And how does the customer interact with different groups within the organization, and how can they ensure that that customer experience is seamless? So we're seeing more and more research where the best-in-class companies, which is what we like to look at, is how are the best-in-class service and support companies delivering service and support. And we're seeing that it's not just a function of service excellence that's within the service organization, but it's something that they rely upon the capabilities of product management and engineering from a quality perspective. It has a significant impact on service. From a manufacturing perspective, again, there's a quality alignment there, there's a reliability element there as well. You think about service and support that's reactive, predictive, or preventive, and then you think about sales and marketing, the impact that they have on the customer. It's really all these different touch points and the alignment of those touch points being the fully connected organization, and how that ultimately impacts retention from a customer base, and then upsell and cross-sell from those customers within the business. So that was the most significant form of sort of the significant discussions that are happening here that I see in my research as well from an alignment perspective.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you again for coming out today, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks.